In 1917, when the world was embroiled in the chaos of World War I, a young and eager 17-year-old named Paul Bäumer decided to join the Imperial German Army. He wasn't alone in this decision, as his friends Albert Kropp, Franz Müller, and Ludwig Bem also enlisted, driven by a mixture of patriotism and a desire for adventure. Deployed to the war-torn landscapes of northern France, near La Malmaison, the young soldiers were soon introduced to a seasoned warrior named Stanislaus Kaczynski. With his weathered face and hardened demeanor, Kaczynski became a mentor and friend to Paul Bäumer and his comrades, offering guidance and a glimpse into the harsh realities of trench warfare on the Western Front. In their youthful idealism, Paul Bäumer and his friends had imagined war as a grand adventure, a chance to prove their courage and noble ideals. However, their romanticized notions were quickly shattered by the brutal truths of combat. On their first night in the trenches, tragedy struck as Ludwig Bem, one of their close friends, fell victim to the indiscriminate barrage of enemy artillery. The stark reality of war, with its merciless randomness and untimely deaths, crashed down upon them, leaving them reeling and questioning their earlier naive beliefs. Now faced with the grim aftermath of loss and the relentless hardships of war, Paul Bäumer and his comrades found themselves confronted with profound questions. How does one hold on to their humanity amidst the dehumanizing conditions of battle? As Paul's Bäumer journey unfolds, we are left curious about the resilience of the human spirit and the toll that war takes on those who experience it firsthand. Only time will reveal the answers as their story continues to unfold on the stage of World War I. Back to November 7, 1918, a pivotal moment in history. During this time, a wearied German state secretary named Matthias Erzberger, burdened by the ever-mounting losses and the toll of the war, finds himself in a crucial meeting with the German High Command. His purpose? To convince them of the urgent need to engage in armistice talks with the Allied powers. But amidst these high-stakes negotiations, let's shift our focus to a seemingly mundane yet significant event unfolding in the lives of our protagonists, Paul Bäumer and Kaczynski. In desperation and camaraderie, they venture to a nearby farm, quietly pilfering a plump goose to share with their comrades. Among their band of brothers are Albert Kropp, Franz Müller, and Jaden Stackfleet, a fellow veteran with whom they have formed a deep bond while stationed behind the front lines in the Champagne region. However, as the war inches closer to its uncertain conclusion, the weight of the future begins to bear down on them. Kaczynski, a man of few letters but a wealth of wisdom, is plagued by worries about reintegrating into a world that no longer resembles the one they left behind. Illiterate himself, he seeks solace in Paul Bäumer reading of a heartfelt letter from his beloved wife. Meanwhile, Franz Müller indulges in a night of passion with a local French woman, temporarily escaping the chaos surrounding them. As he takes her scarf as a keepsake, it becomes more than a souvenir. It embodies a connection, a fragile thread of humanity, amidst the tumultuous backdrop of conflict. As we discover more about their lives, we can't help but wonder what will happen to Paul Bäumer, Kaczynski, Franz Müller, and their other friends as they deal with the effects of war on themselves and the world they fought to protect. November 9th, a day pulsating with historical significance. On this momentous occasion, Matthias Erzberger, the weary German state secretary, and the rest of the German delegation embark on a train journey to shape history. But amidst diplomatic endeavors, let's shift our focus to the unfolding events in the lives of Paul Bäumer and his steadfast friends. Driven by a sense of duty and loyalty, they embark on a mission of great importance, to find 60 recruits who have mysteriously gone missing. These young souls were sent to reinforce their unit but have seemingly vanished into the labyrinth of war. Paul Bäumer and his comrades uncover a heart-wrenching revelation in their relentless pursuit of truth. The missing recruits, tragically, had fallen victim to a deadly gas attack. However, their quest for answers is not the only storm brewing. General Friedrichs, a staunch opponent of the armistice talks, harbors a genuine desire to disrupt the negotiations. In a calculated move, he orders an attack before French reinforcements arrive, determined to unsettle the delicate balance of diplomatic proceedings. As the sun sets on this eventful day, anticipation fills the air. Erzberger and his delegation finally arrive in the forest of Compiègne, the stage set for a high-stakes confrontation that could alter the course of history. Meanwhile, Paul Bäumer and his regiment are summoned to the front lines, preparing for an imminent assault on the French positions. November 10th. In World War I, something extraordinary unfolds on the battlefield. It all begins with a daring move by Supreme Allied Commander Ferdinand Foch, who issues a request to the Germans, granting them a mere 72 hours to accept the unalterable terms set by the Allied forces. The tension in the air must have been palpable as the world held its breath, awaiting the Germans' response. As the clock ticks, a violent clash erupts between the German and French forces. In a brutal display of hand-to-hand combat, the Germans launch a ferocious attack, eventually overpowering the French front line. It's a heartbreaking setback for the Allies as the enemy forces surge forward, threatening to break their resolve. But hope is not lost. In a stunning turn of events, the French mounted a counterattack, deploying a combination of various military units in a coordinated assault. At the forefront of this defensive push are the Saint-Camon tanks, imposing war machines designed to shatter German defenses. These mechanical behemoths roar into action, unleashing their destructive power and turning the tide of battle. The sight of these formidable tanks must have ignited a renewed sense of determination among the beleaguered Allied soldiers. Amidst the chaos and the heroic struggle, tragedy strikes in the form of individual stories. Franz Müller, a German soldier, finds himself separated from his comrades, facing the harsh reality of isolation during the war. On the other side, Albert Kropp, a brave French soldier, tragically loses his life while attempting to surrender. In the relentless theater of war, even seeking peace can result in irreversible loss. Within the harsh landscape of no man's land, a lonely and treacherous stretch between the opposing trenches, Paul Boehmer finds himself trapped in a crater alongside a French soldier. The situation is dire, as they share the same space between the clashing forces. It's a surreal and terrifying experience, with the ever-present threat of death lingering in the air. In the depths of despair and faced with the grim reality of survival, Paul Boehmer succumbs to the darkest impulses within him. Overwhelmed by fear and desperation, he commits a shocking act, stabbing the French soldier. During this heart-wrenching scene, Paul's Boehmer remorse intensifies, driving him to seek absolution from the lifeless body before him. He pleads for forgiveness, grappling with the magnitude of his deeds. It is a poignant moment that underscores war's profound impact on the human spirit, exposing the depths of our emotions and the ethical dilemmas faced by those thrust into the horrors of battle. Matthias Erzberger, amidst the swirling chaos of the battlefield, receives a meaningful piece of news. Word spreads that Kaiser Wilhelm II has abdicated from the throne, leaving a void of power and a sense of uncertainty. But that's not all. Matthias Erzberger also receives a weighty message from Field Marshal Paul Boehmer von Hindenburg. The message instructs Matthias Erzberger to accept the terms imposed by the victorious Allied forces. Meanwhile, as the news of the Kaiser's abdication and the acceptance of Allied terms begin to ripple through the trenches, Paul Boehmer, our protagonist, returns to his unit. A sense of delight fills the air as the soldiers celebrate the imminent end of the war. Can you imagine the relief and sheer joy that permeate their weary souls? It's a moment of shared jubilation, a flicker of hope in unimaginable destruction. However, Jaden Stackfleet succumbs to his anguish and desperation in a heart-wrenching turn of events. Overwhelmed by his suffering, he takes a destructive and desperate action. Using the fork brought to him by Paul Boehmer and Kaczynski, Jaden Stackfleet tragically stabs himself in the throat, ending his own life. November 11th. It's a day that carries profound significance as the world stands on the precipice of peace. Matthias Erzberger and his delegation, entrusted with the weighty task, step forward to sign an armistice to end the relentless bloodshed. The ceasefire is set to take effect at 11 a.m., a moment that holds the promise of liberation from the clutches of war. Meanwhile, amidst the whispers of peace, our protagonist Paul Boehmer and his loyal comrade Kaczynski seize the opportunity for one final act of defiance. They venture out to steal from a nearby farm, a final act of rebellion against imminent change. However, their daring escapade takes an unexpected turn. The farmer's son, driven by fear or misunderstanding, opens fire, and the bullet finds its mark, striking Kaczynski. In a cruel twist of fate, Kaczynski succumbs to his wounds before reaching the sanctuary of an infirmary. It's a devastating blow, as the specter of death claims one more life just as peace beckons. The fragility of existence is laid bare, and the contrast between hope and tragedy becomes achingly palpable. Meanwhile, driven by a desire for a last-ditch victory, disregards the impending armistice. Against the backdrop of the ticking clock, he orders an attack to commence at 10:45 a.m., just minutes before the ceasefire takes effect. The battleground becomes a scene of extreme violence as Paul Boehmer, driven by a cocktail of despair and determination, fights tooth and nail. His objective, to inflict as much damage on the enemy as possible. But in a cruel twist of fate, a bayonet finds its mark in Paul Boehmer's back just seconds before the clock strikes 11 a.m. Wounded and disoriented, Paul Boehmer stumbles into the trenches, his body mired in mud and his soul heavy with the knowledge of impending death. In his final moments, he gazes in awe at the realization that the conflict is truly over. It's a haunting tableau, a testament to the paradox of war's end, where the jubilation of peace is tinged with the sorrow of countless lives lost. Shortly after that, a newly arrived German recruit, whom Paul Boehmer had once saved in the heat of combat, discovers his mud-caked body. He retrieves Franz's mullah scarf, a poignant symbol of their shared experiences and the unbreakable bond formed amidst the horrors of war. However, in the chaos and confusion, the recruit overlooks the dog tag that would have acted as an identifier for fallen soldiers. Consequently, Paul's Boehmer death goes unrecorded, a final, bittersweet twist of fate that underscores the anonymous sacrifices made during times of war. The pivotal moments leading to Paul's Boehmer demise and the subsequent discovery by the recruit invite us to ponder the untold stories of countless soldiers who gave their lives, their identities lost to the annals of history. Through Paul's Boehmer journey, we are reminded of the names and stories of individuals often lost in the big picture of war. It's a sobering reminder of how complicated war is, how strong people's will to live is, and how much a group's efforts mean. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you smash that like button, leave a comment, subscribe, and turn on notifications to help the channel out. Thank you for watching, and see you on the next video.